Jesus gives the secrets to the whole universe with some instructions about where to sit at the dining room table. Hey, YouTube deal. Pastor Wolfmueller here. Sunday drive home-ish. Thinking about the text from Luke 14 for this weekend, which was there's three parts to it. The first is that Jesus is invited to dinner at a certain home of a ruler of the Pharisees. And he heals a man, and then he gives them instructions, and then he gives the master of the feast instructions. And those little, so the setup here is that the Pharisees are looking to trap Jesus. They are, the text says that they're intently watching him. They have the idea of catching him breaking the Sabbath day. Oh yeah, it's a Sabbath day. And there's a man who has a skin disease there, not leprosy, probably a swelling disease. And they put him in the sight of Jesus. And they know well enough that Jesus cannot help himself from healing someone. I mean, whenever Jesus will stay up all night. It doesn't matter the trouble he gets in. If someone needs help, he'll help them. And so they think they've got Jesus now. They said, well, we'll put a sick man next to Jesus on the Sabbath day, and then he'll heal. Now Jesus, it's something, because they're watching Jesus to try to make a judgment, but Jesus is also watching them, and that, it turns out, is the real thing, that Jesus is gonna come back at them. But they're watching Jesus to judge him. Jesus is watching them so that he can preach right to their heart and call them to repentance. So he sees the whole thing set up, and he says, before he even does the healing, is it right to heal a man on the Sabbath? In other words, here, you guys, we don't need to play around. I mean, let's just be out in the open here. So he heals the man, he sends him home, and then he says, which of you, if you have a son, or even if you have an ox that falls into a well on the Sabbath, will not immediately go and rescue him? If someone has an accident and they're in danger, you don't wait till the sun to go down to try to rescue them. You do it right away. This is Jesus' whole deal, that the Sabbath was made for man and not man for the Sabbath. That's part of the right understanding of the law. But then Jesus goes further, because he notices as they're sitting at dinner that some people are going to go and try to get the best seat. They're all jockeying for the best spot. Now, we have this a little bit if you have a formal meal, or even, when you go to someone's house, who sits at the head of the table. But I don't think we have this anywhere near as intense as it is in the ancient world, where you're sitting determines where you are in the social hierarchy. I remember I was telling this story in one of the sermons this weekend, is that when I was 19, I lived in Fiji for a few months, and you would sit around at night and with the elders of the village and everyone else, and drink kava, which is this ground up root. I found a kava bar here in Austin. I took the vicar over there, and he's like, well, what is this? It's this ground up root. Makes your tongue kind of numb. You can buy it at the health food stores. It's supposed to give you a sense of well-being. You mix it in, when you're in a traditional kava ceremony, you mix it in this wooden bowl carved out of a root, and then you serve it with a coconut shell. You put it in a coconut shell. Everyone drinks out of the same coconut shell. There's some clapping and some chanting that goes along with it. And then whoever gets your place in the village, in the social hierarchy, is determined by the order that you're given the drink. So the chief drinks first, and then the next highest elders, and so forth and so on. And then visitors, and then children and everyone else. So there's a kind of a, you know exactly where you are in the social structure. I remember it was, so when you go and we were there and, everyone gets it, and then they come to you last, and I'm gonna drink the kava. I remember it very distinctly because on the last day I was there, the last night in the village, they gave me the first drink. And that was this way of, it was a gift, it was an honor, that kind of thing. Well, this is what's going on in the Pharisee dinners. And they're all looking for the best spot. Who's going to sit in the best space? And Jesus sees this, and he doesn't just see it as sort of a petty social game. Jesus understands this to be an essential characteristic of Phariseeism. That there's this instinctive self-exaltation that clings to our sinful flesh. All of us have a little Pharisee living in us. Luther used to preach about the little monk inside. Can you imagine the little monk running around, the little Pharisee, the little busybody who has a certain creed, and the creed of the Pharisee is, I believe that I'm good. The monk has that essential creed. I believe that I can be good enough to make it to heaven. The Pharisee is not, the monk might be a little bit better than the Pharisee, because the Pharisee, it's not 100% sure if the Pharisee is doing their good works to please God or just to impress their neighbor. Probably some of both. That's the point, is it? I gotta make the case for my own goodness. I got to make the case for my own purpose of my existence. And this is subtle, but it's important, because while every world religion recognizes that there's a danger in our human sinfulness, and we do too, Christians recognize this as well, that we can't do whatever we want. We can't just follow our impulses or whatever, that there has to be constraints because we are not all good. So we see the problem of sin. But Christianity recognizes the next layer too, is that there's a danger also in our good works. Now, this doesn't mean we should, don't misunderstand, it doesn't mean we shouldn't do good works. Of course we should, but there's a danger there, the Pharisee danger, which is that we muster our good works to make the case for our own righteousness. We use good works as evidence of our own worth. And that's a misuse of the law. The pedestal use, I lift myself up and look down on everyone else. The ladder use, I'm trying to climb up to heaven. The self-exaltation. So Jesus says, when you go to the feast, you take the low seat, not the high seat. Now, Jesus is not telling us to play this game, which is like, well, I should sit at that really nice seat, but I'm going to go sit way back here until someone, so then I get the glory of someone inviting me up. No, you go sit down there because that's where you think you belong. And if someone comes and lifts you up to a different seat, to a better position or whatever, then you can receive that as a gift. But it's not what you expect, because Jesus is not saying, well, you go sit in the lower seat, and then no one comes and invites you, and then you're like, what am I doing? I shouldn't be sitting here. That you're in the same problem. No, you humble yourself. Take the lower seat. Because if you sit in the best spot, if you go to a wedding and you sit in the spot where the best man should be, then someone's going to say, hey, buddy, get out of my place. But if you go take the low spot, then then they lift you up. Now, this little instructions is not just Jesus telling us what to do when we go to the party. It's really the history of the world. And Jesus explains it like this. Those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. It's just what God does. It's what Mary sang in the Magnificat. It's what Hannah sang when she was pregnant with Samuel. It's what Moses sang in Deuteronomy. It's the whole beginning to the end. The prideful, the Lord casts down from their seat, and the lowly he exalts. And the lowliness that the Lord exalts is the lowliness of repentance. That's what we're after. To know that we're sinners. Not just to say it, but to know that we're sinners that have deserved God's temporal and eternal punishment. That we cannot save ourselves. That's the thing. That's the lowliness that the Lord is after. The knowledge that we cannot save ourselves. And then he comes and finds us and says, friend, come up higher. I mean, just that word friend is enough. Can you imagine? I don't know what I expect Jesus to say if he were to find me. Hey, you, buddy. And Jesus comes and he looks at us and he says, friend. Oh, I tell you, we do not deserve that. Friend, that's baptism. Friend, come up higher. That's when we read the scriptures. Friend, come up higher. When we come to the Lord's Supper, friend, come up higher. When we die, friend, come up higher. So this little Pharisee, this self-exalter, that's the thing that's in all of us. Jesus puts to death and raises up the new man. God be praised. That's Sunday Drive Home.